all. So you know the deal. Here, if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition Home Gadget Geeks Thursday night. It's the 14th of July, 2021. No, 2022. I said I lost a year there. 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, 9 Eastern, 7 Pacific. There's 7 Mountain, 6 Pacific. Thanks for joining us tonight. If you're out there, I see Ken and John out in the chat room. Thanks for coming out. Ed Sullivan is out here in the pre-show. We're chatting. Normally we do a beer pour or spirit pour. I went and grabbed a little OG Jefferson's, which is what we like here, a little smooth and buttery and creamy. Ed, yeah, what are you doing? You got some Diet Coke?
I got some Diet Coke going. Why am I backwards? I don't know.
Oh, did you flip it? Did you flip your screen around so you'd be backwards?
I did not touch a thing.
That's weird. That's weird. You're back.
Oh, hold the line. I know how to do things. Don't
can we flip that? Yeah, you're a podcast. You're a podcast guy.
Now, what's
see if
the
we can get you
name
flip.
of
But
it?
don't if you flip it and it starts echoing, then we're not gonna. We don't want any of that stuff going on. None of that. The sun must be going down. My screen just went orange. Did you flip it? There we go. There we go. Now hold the Coke up to the screen. Let's see what that looks like. Ah, there we go.
See, I'm actually running eyeglasses.
Yeah.
You know that one?
Yeah. Oh, I do. Yeah, you talked me into it. Yeah.
So it must have got flipped at some point.
Flipped in the process. So the drink's not important to you, but while we're talking about a pour, let's talk about a cigar. So because you are the cigar authority, right?
I am.
You are.
Turns out I am, Jim.
Is there only one? There's probably more. There's probably more than one.
Yeah, we're as a group, we're an authority, so I'm part of it.
For somebody who's never smoked a cigar before, but they want to, and I don't want anybody to start doing this that doesn't want to. So This is not, we're trying to bully you into anything or no peer pressure here, none of those kinds of things. But like, if you were going to give some advice to somebody who's never done this before and wants a good first experience, what do you think's the best way for that first one?
You know, I think, and when you started with some flavored stuff, I think. Tobacco Special, which is a coffee sort of flavor to the cigar. They have a chocolatey one, too. And some of those are even one with a slightly sweet tip. But other than that, your best bet is to get something that's light in color. Oh, John Biggs won't have it.
Yeah, and Ken's quoting Dare.
John would be horrified to know that I smoke cigars in my Tesla, right?
Yeah. And have you ever had one on we're going to talk about Peloton. Have you ever?
No, I haven't.
No, that's in the house. So
there's no fumes.
You don't smoke in the house.
No, there's no fumes coming out of the Tesla, but there's smoke coming out of it. But in general, they'd want to find something that is quite mild.
Yeah,
just to get a sense of it, and that'd be one that's lighter in color with what they would call a Connecticut wrapper on it. But but your best bet is a part of the enjoyment of it is hanging out with friends. So find a friend that enjoys a cigar, and they can point you in the right direction. Yeah. Or, of course, they can watch the Cigar Authority live at 12 p.m. Eastern every Saturday for the past 12 and a half years.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
Been doing it for a long time.
Been doing it for a while.
I think you've been the producer for how long?
Coming up on 5.
5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
I used to actually work for a living, Jim. I had
right on
that nonsense.
Retirement. Retirement.
Oh, yeah.
I think one of the things I've learned is as I've because now people ask me like, how do I want to do this, but how do I start?
Yeah.
And I think one of the temptations people do is they buy the biggest cigar they can because they think that bigger is better or a better
Yeah.
value, right? And I think one of the things you taught me, and we kind of did this the last couple times I've been with you, is get a little more reasonable, get a little smaller, right? Get some of the
And
smaller size.
especially if you're trying it for the first time, why order up a giant one and then
Yeah,
decide
right.
after a minute this is not for me?
Yeah.
That's not such a value decision in the end.
Right. And I think less is more in a lot of cases with cigars, right?
Absolutely.
John says is the first one free. John, if you're with me, it's free.
Or me.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
it'll sport you one
And
there.
he
So
can
not
he
that we're
can
trying to get you,
he can even smoke it in my Tesla if he wants, Jim.
I mean, I did.
Yeah.
So that was pretty great. Right after you put the hammer down and glued me to the seat.
That was fun though, right?
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to give me a concussion from all the.
I think I only did that once though, right? Just to demonstrate that we had the power to.
No, I think you did it twice.
But that was
Once,
because Chef was there too.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
second time, Chef was in the car, and you punched it. The one with Chef was even more extreme than I think the first one that you did.
Chef's a big guy, so I thought I had to add a little more juice to it, Jim.
Do you have the acceleration boost?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
So according to them and according to what I've seen, that'll put it to 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds.
It's just fast.
Well, and Jim, that's really for safety reasons. If I have to merge on the highway, you never know what's going to happen. You might want to go 0 to 60 in 3.7.
You need to be out in front of people. Like,
absolutely.
I mean, yeah, for sure. So, all right. Well, enough peer pressure. Let's. We got a lot to talk about, and that probably might be the last time. Well, not totally, but
also don't inhale the cigars.
There you go. Yeah.
That's the
do you
most
think most
important
people
thing.
don't know that, or do you think they know it?
I think it's worth mentioning.
Okay. Yeah. Well, as I've talked with folks, former cigarette smokers, they always say the hardest part, like they've quit, maybe they've quit cigarettes or they're not doing as many. And they'll say, I'd like to try a cigar, but I'll inhale that thing for sure. And you're like, yeah, no, you don't want to
it'll
do that.
Get your attention if you do.
Yeah. You don't want to do that.
No.
So. All right, let me kick this thing off. Ed, thanks for coming out tonight and hanging out with us. Lots of bicycle talk tonight. So and those guys who joined early, thanks for coming out. Joe, John, and Ken, thanks for hanging out with us. All right, let me do this thing. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 538, recorded on July 14th, 2022. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.TV studio here in a super hot, I think we're 100 and something tomorrow, Bellevue, Nebraska. Ed, I know Ed Sullivan's with us tonight. Ed, I know you're on the East Coast. You've got some heat coming right behind us.
We'll be hitting the 90s before long. It's unusual for us to see 100 out here, but I was in Las Vegas. When was that? Last weekend for the most part. It was about 111 there.
But it's dry heat.
Oh,
it's dry heat. So it's not, it's basically
fine.
air conditioning.
Speaking of which, I'm going to switch mine off, even though you can't hear it.
Don't worry about it. But Ed's is fresh back from Vegas. He is the producer and host over there at the Cigar Authority. And but today we're going to talk about bikes, and Ed is kind of to talk about. Ed, how long have you been biking?
So I actually started biking after I quit cigarette smoking, which should be 34 years ago. Okay. And I sort of made a rule, okay, I can spend whatever I used to on cigarettes on bicycles. I think over the years I've spent more on bicycles than I would have spent on cigarettes, although it's probably close.
Yeah.
And so I started riding mountain bikes back then and have continued to ride. Different years you get different amounts of riding in because I was traveling a lot for my job back in the day. And, once I retired 5.5 years ago, I was getting good cycling in until 2019. You remember that,
Mm-hmm.
the whole
Mm-hmm.
COVID thing? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, Jim, it just got to be not fun. You remember at the beginning? Well, if you
Yeah.
go out running, you gotta mask up and
Mhm.
people would yell at you
And
if
you're in
you ride.
Massachusetts, and they
Yeah,
were taking it super seriously, right?
very
Yeah,
seriously.
yeah, yeah.
So I sorta never got going in 2019. So, when 2020 came around, I thought, "Okay, it's time to get back into it," and got into the season a little late, so all of a sudden, I'm just getting into it, and it's getting to be the end of August. So at that point, I thought, "Okay, I wanna carry this through this year," so I went out and had a look at the Peloton and decided, "Okay, I'm gonna get one of these." So part of that is and Peloton, for me, they've got a lot of negative press lately, I think.
Yeah. They have some business problems. Not necessarily, I mean, they did have that they had that, treadmill problem,
The
right?
treadmill one. I
Yeah.
haven't heard problems with the bikes, although
And
then there were a couple of TV shows where they felt it necessary to put the Peloton in the show and have people have heart attacks and fall off the Peloton,
mhm.
which I don't think was the Peloton's fault.
Right,
You never know.
right.
But, it's not let's say it's not a cheap date to get into this, and if you look at it, they had the original one they introduced, which, right now I think is at $1,445. There we go, and then they came out with one after that, the Bike Plus, which it adds $500, but big difference there is, they upgrade the display on that. I think you get better speakers on that one, but the big difference is it automatically adjusts resistance.
Mm,
Right, so when the instructor says, "Okay, now you should be at this," you don't have to touch the thing, it just does it all for you.
mhm.
Is all of that worth $500? Well, to me, it was, but, I it's very much the same experience except for those slight differences. The problem I have with it is, uh, okay, you bought this thing, and now they want, it just went up recently, $44 a month to
Yeah.
actually get the subscription. Now, you can certainly use the thing without that subscription, but then you're not getting all the benefit of it. And I think you, Jim, actually signed up for just the app, which is an option also. You were
Yeah,
doing
and
that for a while, right?
I think, yeah, I did it a couple times actually when I enjoyed the times. It never translated to my workouts here at home. We had a stationary bike at work, not even
Mhm.
close to like Peloton, but I would put the put my phone up on that, had a little phone stand on it, and I would watch the workouts, and I got some pretty good workouts in just using the app, and I think that's 15, maybe 12, 15 a month to just
Right.
subscribe to their workouts, you know?
Yeah, 12.99. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyone that's ever said, "I'm going to the gym to ride the stationary bike," it's very easy to sit there and do next to nothing.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
turning the pedals and,
Yeah. Yeah.
taking in the view at the gym. So I find it very helpful to have the structure of their workouts, and they've got a whole bunch of different kinds of workouts, but part of it is, for me, it seems expensive at 44 because it's just me. I'm the only one riding the bike, and they do offer a lot of other things. You've got the treadmill stuff. I think there's weight training, there's yoga in there,
Mhm.
and you can actually have the entire household with accounts. So, if you've got 3 or 4 people in the household, then the 44 doesn't seem as expensive. But part of the reason I liked the Peloton is that they give you pretty good riding metrics, which you wouldn't have gotten, but you may have seen them on some of the gym bikes, heart rate monitor. So you'll get heart rate, they'll show you your current cadence, but the thing I really like is they actually show your power output.
And so what does that mean? Like, because
What
I've
does
heard
it
this
all
term
mean?
watts, right? Like, is that like a light bulb watts or what does that mean? I've never been able to figure that out.
So they figure the wattage, and I don't know if that, aside from being a measurement, I don't know how interesting the calculation of it is, but it really relates to the gear that you're in and the RPM, right? So you could be in a lower gear with a higher RPM, and that would be functionally equivalent to, a high gear, low RPM. But in general, what do I have here for stats? A beginning cyclist might be 75 to 100 watts per hour, or watts in a 1 hour period. So you're maintaining that 75 to 100. They say a fit person, it'll be over 100. And the Tour de France, which I know you're watching, they'll put out about 400 watts per hour for, 5 or 6 hours in a row.
Those guys are crazy. That is,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what inspired me to watch Tour de France, but I guess I saw one of the extended highlights of it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Maybe I think it was day 2. And I started watching it and I just said, I've never watched an entire tour. This is going to be the year. I'm going to catch not the full, you can't watch the full version.
Yeah.
It's 5 hours. It's way too long.
Mm-hmm.
But I catch the 45-minute NBC, extended highlights, I think is what they call
Yeah.
it. They have a highlights and then an extended highlights. And already, so we're 12 days in, and I think already, like, I'm like, oh, well,
You're kind of hooked, huh?
this is kind of
And
interesting. Like, this is
I
kind of fun.
I think them having the summaries at the end of the day, they'll edit it down to, what do they have, about a 5-minute version and then a 45-minute version.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the 5's a little short, actually. I like that
Yeah.
45.
You don't get any of in the 5, you don't get any of the drama. Yesterday was quite the drama as the yellow shirt guy. He's the
Yep.
leader, lost his shirt and to somebody else. And there's a whole
Right.
bunch of drama involved.
Now,
And
to
you're
be
like,
clear, he's not
pretty
just
good.
riding bare-chested now. He has
The guy
his team
ripped it off.
jersey.
The guy just ripped the yellow shirt right off of him as he passed.
And
No, it's
have you figured out the polka dot one yet, Jim?
King of the Mountain is the polka dot, right?
Green?
Sprint champion or sprint
Yeah,
point
yeah.
leader,
And
something
white?
like that. Is that the overall point leader? No.
No, the white is
No.
a new rider.
Okay.
So it's sort of like
Oh,
the rookie shirt.
the rookie of the race so far or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Well,
And John's asking, whether I try to bike within a specific heart rate zone. So that is certainly a method of training that a lot of people use. I actually do more on the power training. So they sort of define 7 different power zones, which will get you into certain heart rate ranges. If you're in zone 3, zone 4 for a sustained time, then you're probably at 80% heart rate range. So the higher zones in the power training are definitely going to push you to anaerobic levels. But I kind of prefer the power because it's a set measurement, right? I don't know about you, Jim, but you probably, when you're out running, when you were a runner, you remember that, Jim?
it's a long time ago now, it feels like. But not long
Right,
ago.
but
Not long ago.
depending on any number of gym variables, like you're tired, or,
Right.
you
Right.
didn't get enough sleep, you'd see it's really the same effort you're putting out for different heart rate results, right? So
Hmm.
the power zones don't really lie. It is what it is. And it's sort of interesting with the power zone training. I'll usually know a couple days in advance when I'm getting sick,
Mm.
right? Before the actual symptoms show up. And you may have noticed that too when you were running. It'd be like, wow, the heart rate's really high today.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
feel like I was pushing that hard.
I wish I had trained to more heart rate. I didn't train with heart rate in mind. I kind of trained for distance or for comfort or for,
Yeah.
I just didn't, in those days, I never wore a heart rate monitor. And then the watches weren't, we still didn't have the heart rate in the watches when I was
Yeah.
running. So I just
And
didn't pay much attention to it.
the other thing that doesn't impact you when you're riding indoors is, even if I ride the same route every time, and I can look at, did I ride it faster this time than last time?
Mhm.
Well, you've got more factors on the road, especially wind, right? So I may have potentially ridden slower overall, but put out more power
Mhm.
for that particular effort. So
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of power, but the problem is not so much on the Peloton, but now when you want it on your bicycle on the road,
Right.
that doesn't come cheap.
Well, okay, so you're not taking your, so you got all this Peloton gear and
Yep,
data, right?
I do.
But then you wanna go outside and you can't, has Peloton made like a bike device where you could take it with you?
No.
Okay. So that'd be a great business opportunity. I never thought of that
Maybe
till
they
just now.
should,
I know, they
you
need some
know,
help.
your average bicycle going out the door of the bike shop is not going to give you any power measurement.
Mhm.
There's I tend to I have it right here. I tend to like having a dedicated bicycle computer, which this is the Garmin. These are not inexpensive. This one's probably, I don't know, $400, something like that. And the thing is, it sounds expensive, but it's got a lot of stuff in it, Jim. It's got GPS, it's got Wi-Fi, it's got Bluetooth, it has an altimeter in it, it's got a temperature sensor in it. So you really get a lot of data with it. And for me, I'd rather not have my phone mounted
Mm,
on the handlebars.
mm. Why?
Now, I just I don't know, maybe it's more me, Jim, than anything else. It's just always been, I'd rather have my phone available. I don't
Mhm.
talk a lot on my phone when I'm riding, but sometimes I do pull the phone out, and the other thing is, I don't necessarily want to use the phone battery as much. I wanna make sure I still have battery in the phone. This'll last 30 plus hours on a charge.
Mhm.
So, I keep the phone separate, but if you have a phone and you don't have one of these, it's pretty easy to use your phone for the very same
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah.
There's a ton of applications out there for, cycling and riding right now. But, for me, yeah, the challenge was, okay, now I got all these stats on my Peloton.
Mhm.
And Garmin's got their own portal, and I got all my stats over on Garmin's portal for my rides outdoors, and I kinda can't compare them at all. So, really what, I looked at was a service called Strava, which, I probably have a link here that I can share.
It may not let you share it. I'll grab it and throw
Mm,
it in
yeah, let me
the
find
chat.
it. But, Strava is actually, uh they have a web portal as well as, an application that runs on iPhone and on Android. Let's see. This one sounds promising. Dashboard, Strava. Let's try this one. So Strava's actually got a pretty well-defined API, which is probably why there are more integrations with this than anything else. So I could actually go right over to the Peloton and tell it to send the data to Strava at the completion of a workout. And you can see I've been riding indoors more lately, had some rain. Or I can do the same thing with Garmin. So you can see this is one of the Peloton workouts with your favorite, Jim, Dennis Morton.
I like Dennis. Dennis the
Dennis is
Menace.
crazy.
He is crazy.
And then I've got this one that came from the Garmin, and you get the whole route. This was just an out and back to Concord Center, and they'll give you all kinds of stats. That one was 135 watts average for that ride. They give you, calories burned, all kinds of stuff.
So the
Elevate.
Garmin's not connected to the bike like you would expect. The Peloton kind of is monitoring the cranks and cycle times and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when you're getting Garmin watts, are they calculating that based on like the data that they have available from a
So no, you've got to buy a power meter, Jim.
all right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. There we
The
go.
one I've got is sort of old school. Back in the old days, it was all of the electronics of it were incorporated into the hub in the wheel. So you'd have to go buy a hub, have somebody build you a bicycle wheel, and
around the hub, right?
Yeah. So it was not a cheap proposition. You'd be into that for over $1,000 by the time you were done with that. And at that time, that stuff was all, you remember Ant Plus protocol, right? That was a big one with cycling and sports. And I think it was pretty valid at one point, even when Bluetooth was out. Bluetooth was certainly flakier back in the day, but now it just makes a lot of sense for people to buy Bluetooth gear. So if you decide, okay, I'm going iPhone, you can just get a Bluetooth heart rate monitor, and the iPhone app will pick that up. They also integrate with Bluetooth power meters, and the other option is a cadence sensor. Most of the power meters can calculate cadence, but if you want, okay, how fast am I pedaling? Then you can spend less money and just get a cadence sensor that'll integrate with these things as well. Yeah, John wants to know if the Garmin has sensors that attach to the crank and another to the front fork. The way I've got mine set up right now is the power meter is in the hub on mine. So that gives me both power and cadence. It can figure out the cadence based on
the hub.
that.
It's the pedals. Is that where the pedals are? Is that the hub? Is that what you?
No, this is the hub in the wheel.
In the back wheel.
In the back wheel. Yeah.
Okay.
But nowadays they're making some that they're actually integrated into the pedals, right? So you could buy a pair of power meter pedals. Now, Garmin's power meter pedals are, I think, about $1,200.
Oh yeah. Hopefully they come with toe clips and the shoes that you need, and they massage your feet.
None of that.
No,
none of that. There's an interesting company that makes for Shimano road pedals. They actually make a replacement spindle, right? So the spindle in the pedal, you replace them with the power meter spindles, and those will give you the same functionality, which is helpful for somebody that's got multiple bicycles. because you could just, okay, you got to pop the pedals off, but with a pedal wrench, that's pretty easy to do. Brian's got a good point. The bike accessories can quickly cost more than the bike several times over. Yeah, the thing about that, Brian, is that the people who are spending this kind of money on the accessories already spent a fortune on the bicycle. So I've got a custom built titanium bike that I bought. It's probably going on 15 years ago, but at the time, just that frame was, as I recall, about $6,000.
Mm,
That's
mm.
just the frame, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
all of a sudden, when you're starting with that and adding, all the components to that, that one even, 15 years ago came out over $10,000 for that bicycle. So
Mhm.
unless you're really into it, I don't think you even go the power meter route for somebody who's just getting into this. Most of most folks, if you want to do that, just go with heart rate zone training if you want to track progress on it, and that's a lot simpler. You don't need all these fancy sensors.
Mhm.
But for me, this is my major hobby. Yeah, a little bit more than a huffy. Yeah, because Jim hopes to get a bike that powers itself
Yeah,
for
we'll talk about that at the end.
yeah,
We'll save that till the end. I
for
had a
about the price of the power meter spindles.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's worth the question I think is worth asking. So we'll kind of talk about that towards the end. So Ed, you've got all this data coming in, and it's all coming in to Strava. Do you spend you do you s- do you obsess much about your data at all, or
I
is it just
used to really obsess about it, and now it's sort of more just check in from time to time. How are we doing? Because you'll see from the time you start the cycling season, especially with a winter off in New England, until you get to the end of the season, you'll see, remarkable improvement in the average power. Back when I was riding more steadily, I would normally on a ride be closer to 200 watts of power. Of course, then again, I was younger too, right? So
right?
part of it is you get to a certain age, and it's probably not healthy to obsess too much over these stats because you're never going to match what you did in the past, you know? So it's sort of like, let's just get a base at the beginning of the season, whatever that is, which is way less than it used to be,
Yeah.
but just build from where you're at.
Or you don't see as fast of improvements. I mean, you can improve.
Absolutely.
They just don't come as fast sometimes. They don't, and listen, everybody's mileage might vary. Any kind of workout, so you drop a bunch of weight and you're probably going to see some improvements in your
W-
workouts because you're not carrying all that extra weight, right?
Well, and that's an interesting thing, right? Uh, for me, I can track the watts, but it's not meaningful necessarily from person to person. And what people tend to talk about is watts per kilogram,
Mm,
right? Because if I'm putting out 135 and somebody who weighs 140 pounds is putting out 135, they're going a lot faster than I am.
mm. Yeah, they just less mass, right? To have
Le-
to pull
Less
up the
mass.
hill or push down the hill or, just
And,
just push in general.
as I was looking at some stuff for this, let me find that link. I saw sort of an um, interesting stationary bike that is not a Peloton. And where did I put it? I got too many links, Jim.
Uh,
Oh,
John
yeah.
says less muscle to generate power. Well, yeah, true. Muscle does weigh more. There's this weird, there's this weird time as if you're overweight and you're losing weight, and if you're working out and putting on muscle mass,
Yeah.
muscle weighs more than fat, and so there'll be this time where you'll plateau, right?
Well, now here's a stationary bike that you attach your power pack to it and actually charge that, so you can charge your devices. So you're not wasting all the power
Yeah, yeah.
pedaling that bike. And
It's a good idea.
I think somebody in here
It
refers to
takes
it
a
as
lot of human effort to generate power. Like we always kind of think like man, when I'm riding my bike, if I could just be charging something, and you're like, yeah, the human doesn't actually do a very good job of being a good generation of power by itself. We're just not heavy enough. We don't have enough push or enough thrust.
yeah.
So in this kind of situation, yeah, you're going to charge a battery. You're not going to charge it a lot.
All right.
Like,
So here's what they're saying in here, Jim. The average workout generates between 170 watt hours and 230 watt hours, enough to power a MacBook Pro 2.6 times and an iPhone 12 8 times. So, I mean, that's not bad. Get on in the
that's not, yeah,
morning.
yeah.
But I don't know if it's worth $2,250 for this. So that,
Well, and you're not going to power your oven or your air conditioner or like, those phones and laptops now are
yeah,
pretty efficient, right? But
they
um,
are. And, a lot of back in the day, one of the problems used to be with all the bike gear, the lights, and all of that stuff. It was all battery powered.
mhm,
And the LEDs weren't very good. A lot of the light manufacturers were using halogens.
mhm.
So you'd have to lug around a lot of batteries, but
Big old
no,
D. No, what's big old 9 volt? The
yeah,
big square ones.
throw a car battery on the back.
You just added a couple pounds.
But a lot of the lighting technology, it for all lighting technology, but especially on the bikes, is just a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Brighter.
lighting is more efficient, right?
Oh yeah.
Materials are lighter. Clothing is better. I mean, just shoes alone, in being able to get a vented pair of shoes that are strong and yet
Yeah.
allow air to come in, right? Just the gear that you wear, as well as the gloves, the nutrition,
Yeah.
all that stuff is so much better.
Well, at Tour de France, I don't remember the number anymore, but at one point they actually had a minimum bike weight, and I think this was meant for safety reasons, right? Don't try to make it so light you're gonna get yourself killed doing this. But the technology got so good and the parts got so light that people were not making the minimum weight with the bike.
Mm,
So I remember at one tour, they were adding weights to the bike, and that was sort of missing the intent of the rule.
right,
Just put some lead
right.
weights on there.
Yeah, yeah. Let's make it super light, and then we'll make it heavy again. And John's asking you, how do you hydrate? What's your strategy, both
Yeah,
inside and out?
yeah. So hydration, that was always my favorite company slogan, was Camelback. Do you remember their slogan? Hydrate
Uh-uh.
or die. And I thought, okay, well, that about sums it up. Uh, you know, always the hydration strategy is drink before you're thirsty. So what does that mean in real terms? I think the large water bottles now on the bike are 24 ounce or something like that. So if I'm out on a hot day, it's a minimum for me of one bottle per hour. And it's one of those things where the toughest thing for me is to remember to do that.
Right, right.
So I always, at the top of any hill, no matter how small, I just decide, okay, I'm going to have a drink. And that's sort of the trigger
Mhm.
to keep me drinking. For now, on an hour ride, John, I'm drinking water. Way back in the day, though, I used to do some ultra distance events, and there was one year where I had this crazy thought that I would do the Boston, Montreal, Boston ride. And it's exactly what it sounds like, Jim. You ride up to Boston or Montreal and you turn around and ride back. And that's a 1,200-kilometer ride with a time limit of 90 hours. So that one had a whole different strategy, right? Because you had to have a nutrition strategy as well as a hydration strategy. But I don't tend to lately ride more than a couple of hours at a time. So the 2 big bottles on the bike will do it for me. And, with the Peloton indoors, well, there's only virtual hills, which isn't as good a trigger for me. So I just try to make sure that I'm getting some water into the body every 5 minutes or so anyway. But, back in the day, I did, if you're riding long distances, sometimes I found the Gatorade to be a little bit much to be drinking a whole ton of it. So I usually just diluted the Gatorade. And, other than that, the problem on the long ones, the longest I ever did in the qualification rides after I did a 300-kilometer ride where it was 96 degrees in the heat of the day, I decided, yeah, this long distance stuff is not for me. This is really, I was riding with my brother too, who weighs 140 pounds. So he'd float up these, what I didn't realize is that these qualifier rides, this is for Boston, Montreal, Boston. So they looked for every hill they could find on the 300 kilometers, and he'd float up the hill like a butterfly. Yeah, I was working a lot harder than him to get up those hills. But that was long day on the bike because I think the ride started at 3 a.m. So you had to have lights, and at that time, yeah, the LEDs weren't available. So I was riding with a dyno hub, which generates power. So this was a front hub that generates power to power a halogen light as well as a rear light.
It's taken a little bit of, to do that, it's taking not much, but it is taking some of your effort, some of your momentum away.
Sure. Yeah, there's some loss of efficiency in that. But, I think for most folks, water's going to carry you unless you're out if you're really out on a very hot day, you probably want some electrolytes. And there were times where I'd take a bottle of Gatorade in one bottle and water in the other one. But
well, and I like to mix them on the races. They would make the Gatorade from powder, and they would automatically dilute it.
Sure.
And so I made that mistake so many times, Ed, when I was running marathons. Was you'd get out in the first half, and it felt good, and you're all trained up, and you're just out there running around, high-fiving people, and you just don't drink enough, and you don't eat enough. And I was always afraid, like, well, I get a cramp or, whatever. And it's a big deal. You got to get, I always made that mistake. I never drank early enough.
Really, once you fall behind on the hydration, you don't catch up.
No.
That was
not until like 3 days later. You're just drinking for like 3 days, trying to get rehydrated,
Yeah, and that was always what people would tell you: drink before you're thirsty and eat before you're hungry.
Yeah.
Although, for me, I don't know, you probably didn't have a lot of eating to do on the long runs, but
you'd want to consume quite a few on a marathon. You want to get quite a few calories in before, you'll bonk pretty hard at 20 if you're not. And that I always did, because I never, I'd have shot blocks and some of those kinds of things. And then in most of the marathons, they'd have stops, not stops, but they'd have
Yeah.
people along the way with stuff. And I just never, I never should, I always felt like, no, I don't need that. And that's so dumb. I should have hydrated and ate every station. I'm a
Yep.
big guy to begin with, so it takes a lot of calories to move this guy,
Well,
26.2 miles.
yeah, and I used to ride a lot of century rides, 100 miles,
Hmm.
right? And yeah, always made that mistake of, okay, I'll just skip the 25-mile stop. We'll hit it at 50. And by then, it might be too late.
Yeah. Well, it was always a pride thing for me. I'd be like, I don't need that. These runners are pulling over at the water station, the very first one, we're at
Yeah.
like 2 miles, 3, and then people are grabbing water, and I'm like, I'm too good for that. Like I don't need that. No, I should have grabbed that, and for early on, that would have probably
Yeah.
served me well.
Well, and those blocks and the liquid goo were just kind of disgusting.
They're awful. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
terrible. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was more a fan of the Cliff Bars.
Mhm.
Those were big, but stuff would get stuck in your teeth, and then as you're riding, you were never sure, did I just eat a bug or was that a Cliff Bar remnant? And I figured you're just better off not knowing either way.
No, it is protein, so you're good. You're okay.
Good
You're okay.
either
Not a lot of
way.
carbs. Not a lot of carbs in the bug, but you'd still be okay with it. Yeah, there's a whole to these ultra or these long distance events. There's a whole strategy, and I know you did, and I found myself. You start obsessing about like
Yeah.
when I was preparing for marathons, I was either running, preparing to run, or recovering from running. That's the only three activities I was doing. I was working and such, but you're
Mhm.
just always thinking about like what's the next run?
Yeah.
Do I have enough? What am I going to take with me? Do I need to go stage calories or hydration? Do I need to go stage it? Like we'd literally go out, drive out, and hide liquid so that we
Right.
could, you could grab it on your run and not have to carry it.
And yeah, that was a bit of a problem when I was training for some of these longer rides, right? You have to figure out, okay, I got to go out and ride 100 miles today unsupported. You know, I don't know where I'm going to find water. I don't know whether I'll get lost, although that's easier these days because of all the mapping functions on even the Garmin has maps. And of course, cell phones are much better now. Uh, John Biggs says during the Disney marathon, about 3/4 of the way through, they offered Hershey's miniatures. No thanks. One of my favorite things, Jim, when I was out for those long rides, it wasn't Hershey miniatures, but the Payday candy bar.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Because you've got some protein with the nuts, you've got some sugar. It's really, on some of the long rides, that was the only time where I would drink regular Coca-Cola.
Oh, it's
That'll
so
revive
delicious
you
too.
when you bonk too. It'll
Yes.
just at least give you that
So
shot of sugar.
delicious. So delicious. It's you drink it and it's like, this is the best Coke I've like they must have made this just for me because this is the best Coke ever. You're
Well,
so thirsty. I like pizza when I'm running.
mm,
Like if I can't like eat it on the run. I need to stop. But
yeah,
we were doing some distance running and you could, we just unsupported, take some breaks. And Casey's Pizza just was and people would be like, "Oh, that'd kill me." No, your body's pretty efficient at that point. It just smokes it,
well,
and
and mountain bikers always seem to favor burritos.
oh
They
yeah.
love those burritos. And, yeah, for me, probably wasn't the best choice, but you go out to do the century rides early in the morning, and you really should eat something before you get on the bike. My meal of choice was 2 sausage egg McMuffins
Mhm.
just on the way to the ride.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
No, right on.
That'd carry me for a while because it's a longish day. Even if you're riding a century, you got to ride to finish in 5 hours. You got to ride 20 miles an hour with no stops. So when you factor it
Right,
from there, it's going to
right.
be even if you're moving along somewhere between 5 and 6 hours of sustained effort.
Yeah.
So,
Listen, you get ultra athletes or just any athletes that go, anything more than a 10K, and it always defaults to calories and hydration
yeah.
for whatever reason. I think we could spend all show talking about that. I want to ask other tech that you have found helpful. If you think about, just your kind of your average writer, anything in that other stuff you found helpful tech wise?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this one is helpful or just a little over the top, but my brother rides quite a bit, and he told me this one is a must-have. Let's see if I can find it. It's what happens when you got 24 links.
Well, you prepared well for the show. That's the I'm gonna spin it as you did a lot of preparation.
Well, part of it is I had them all lined up in the order you intend to go in, but
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you
no,
kind of
we
meander
moved
a
around.
little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Throw
Uh,
that up on share the screen, and I'll toss it up there.
Now, this is an interesting piece of tech from Garmin. Uh, it's radar with a built-in tail light and also a camera.
Hmm.
So, you'd mount this on the back of the seat post. Um, and my Garmin unit is integrated with this. So you get notification when there's cars coming up behind you, which is particularly helpful for some of these damn Teslas that sneak up on you, Jim.
I know those Tesla drivers are just the worst, right? Those no sound, they're just sneaking up on you.
And I mean, really, depending on the speed, you should be able to hear tire noises from any car. But some folks seem to insist on wearing headphones when they're riding a bicycle, which
It's
I would
crazy.
never in
Crazy.
my life do.
No, it's crazy.
Yes.
What's the name of this unit?
This is called Varia. It's made by Garmin. And, I've seen other ones that are kind of interesting for night riding where they'll actually project a line on the road
Mm, mm.
for the drivers. But, um, having ridden a lot at night in some of these long distance events, I find that most drivers tend to give you more space at night than they do during the day.
Okay.
As long as you're well lit,
Mhm,
they sort of come up on you and think, oh my gosh, what the heck is that? And they'll
mhm.
tend to slow down and give you a wider berth. Whereas during the day, they might buzz by you a foot from your pedal on the roadside of it. So,
When you think about being lit in the sense of your bike being lit,
yeah.
are flashing strobes better than, just a solid light on or a reflector? Is there any thought on that of what's better?
I think the flashing strobes are a mixed bag for me. You know, they're gonna get somebody's attention, but they are also likely to be more annoying
Mhm.
to a driver. I mean, if you're on a dark road, they're gonna see a solid light anyway. But, I have noticed some folks use them daylight time too,
Mhm.
and the flash is still noticeable, and, you've been out in my neighborhood, you go from sun to shade to trees, so, sometimes you'll definitely notice a rider who's way up ahead in the shade
Mhm.
much sooner if they're running a flashing light on the back. So, the other thing too is, one thing that can be helpful is some kind of side lighting. Doesn't have to be flashing, maybe something passive. So when I rode a lot at night, I would tend to put some reflective tape, even on the wheel rim or something, just so that if you're being lit from the side by an oncoming car, at least it's more discernible.
See, getting T-boned is just as painful as getting hit from behind.
It
Right?
absolutely is. And for me, the worry was, yeah, Justin sort of agrees. He doesn't like the flashing.
It's harder to tell distance with the
Mm-hmm.
flashing, I think, in some
Yeah.
regards, and
And,
it may for some drivers may confuse them.
no, and honestly, these LEDs are bright enough. If you're just running a fixed red LED in the back at night, you're still going to be visible from a very long distance. And the other thing too is, if you're riding, well, I suppose at dusk you may only have the light in the back, but if you're riding with a front light as well, I mean, a driver even from a distance is going to see the light in the back, as well as the fact that you're lighting the road with your front light as well.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, yeah, I feel like drivers give me more space at night with lights on.
Okay.
However, then you got to start worrying, okay, well, have they been out to the bar tonight? Or
Yeah, Friday night's probably not a great night to be out biking in the dark.
no, and over the years, it's become way more of a concern with me, with distracted drivers. People who are busy looking at their texts are not noticing whether you have a solid light or a flashing light.
Yeah. No. What about gearing? So, I think way back to my Schwinn 10 speeds when
Yeah.
you had the gears down on the frame, and then they got moved up to the top of the frame, right? And shifters have certainly taken on a whole new, I mean, there's just so much technology in those now. Do you prefer to go manual, or do you like, I know there's some auto shift stuff that'll just do it
Yeah.
for you.
I don't think anybody has perfected the auto shift yet. Although on my primary bike, I have moved to electronic shifting.
So
So,
how's that different?
so there's a motor in the derailleurs. And so really you're just clicking a button. It's
Gotcha,
not
gotcha,
mechanical
gotcha.
at that level. It just sends a signal down to the motor to change the gear, and that works much faster. It's more precision, but it's expensive,
Yeah,
as with anything bike related.
yeah.
Um, and I do have my old school fixed gear bike with just the one gear and no free wheel, so you gotta pedal constantly.
Yeah, how does that work? Like, so braking wise, are you pushing back on the pedal to brake like you do old school, or do you have handbrakes?
Theoretically, you could do that. My knees probably don't want to deal with that, so
Yeah.
I actually have handbrake is the standard mechanical brakes,
Mhm.
although I don't have disc brakes. That's a big technology thing on bicycles now, is going to a disc brake.
Mhm.
But for me, if you're just around the city on a fixed gear bike, not moving too fast, then you could probably backpedal to stop. If all of a sudden you're going down a steep hill, though, at 30 miles an hour, you're not going to be able to to stop with a backpedal force. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and it's not 10 speed anymore, Jim, because that was kind of, 2 up front and 5 in the back.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
if you look at, for example, Shimano Dura Ace would be 2 up front and 12 in the back, 24
Mhm.
speed. Some people will set up 3 chain rings in the front. So you might have 3 by 11 in the back, or 33 different gears to choose from.
Mhm. I've
So,
seen 3 and 6, so 3 up front, 6 in the
yeah,
back for 18. Yeah.
yeah. But no, I think the best you can do is probably the 33 would be about the limit. Theoretically, you could do 36, because part of it becomes just the wheel spacing, right? For
I think I said 3 in the front and 6 in the back. Justin said that reminds him of a mullet business in the front part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we're sort of hitting the limits right now because what they started to do is make the cogs in the back thinner and thinner and running thinner and thinner chains. And at some point, you're not going to have enough strength in the chain if you make it too thin, and you just really are not going to have space to fit any more back there. So 12 is it for now, but you know how all this stuff goes. When you think it's reached its limit, somebody will figure out a way to get more out of it.
Yeah.
So
Do you need that? I mean, 30 gears. Like, do you really need that many?
turns out there's some overlap even,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but it depends where you're riding, right? If I were out to ride over mountains, not being a professional cyclist, I might want the 3 in the front to have a really low gear to keep moving up a mountain. But they did some things on the front where they have a compact gearing now. So the big chain ring isn't as big as it used to be. And then, you can select different cog sizes in the back.
Yeah.
That'll give you, with 2 chain rings, enough gearing for a recreational cyclist to handle pretty much whatever they come across. As a more recreational guy is not going to decide to ride up a mountain.
Well, he might. May get a crazy guy like me who might try, but in most cases, no. Listen, I'm the
Right.
guy who tried to take the B-cycle bike, our city rental bikes. I tried
Yeah.
to take that on a 50-mile bike ride and with nothing, no hydration, no
Just
food,
go, right?
no ID, didn't even have my phone with me. I was just going to go. And I thought, well, I mean, one thing led to another. I was going to go 10 and then I thought, well, I'll try 20. Well, 25 is not that far. Then I get out 25 and I'm like, well, man, I'm there until I turned
Yeah.
around. And then I'm like, oh, I'm not there. Like I
John
got to go
says
25 back.
John says you'll go halfway up the mountain.
I know.
As it turns out, that's fine because you get to go downhill on on the way back.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
Right.
Jim, is the Tour de France making you want to ride up Alpe d'Huez or?
No. Those guys look miserable, They
And
get to the end and they're just spent. What I can't imagine is they get to the end and they're spent and then they do it again the next day. Like
yeah,
they look like at the end of a race where they're going to be, they'd recover for a week. Nope, they're going to ride the next day. Like
yeah.
I don't get it.
Well, I went on a bike tour in France. That's probably almost 20 years ago, and yeah, we rode up one of the Tour de France climbs, Mount Ventoux. And the thing you forget is that it's very high elevation. By the time you're most tired, you're out of oxygen too, and then you ride past the tree line, and things get a little funky looking up there too.
Yeah, it is miserable. We did Mount Evans in Colorado, and you start at 10 and you finish at 14.
Yeah.
And you're just out of air. Like you're not us lowlanders. Nebraska's like 800, right? So us lowlanders were like, yeah, we're not making it very well.
But Jim, it can be a lot of fun riding down those mountains.
It's great riding down those mountains.
Well, it's scary. I think the top speed I ever got on a bicycle was 52 miles an hour.
Ooh, yeah, that's a little fast.
A motorcycle passed me, and I'm thinking, well, he's got a much better helmet than I've got. Mine seems pretty skimpy.
If you go down, it's going to leave a mark for sure.
Well, then you start thinking, well, what if I hit a squirrel?
Right.
What happens then?
Right. When I was in high school, we biked San Jose to Tahoe, and that's just all uphill. Like, you start San Jose is 400 feet. But you got to cross one mountain range to go into the Central Valley, and then you make your way up the Sierra Nevada
Yeah.
mountains. And that first day, we went San Jose to Stockton, which is about 100 miles. And so it's a 100-mile day. You climb all morning. So it's even more than that. You climb till about 2, right?
Yep.
Because it's just climbing. And then the ride into Stockton is like 10 minutes because it is literally all downhill. And you just fly and you're like, man, I just did 40 miles in an hour. Because, you're going 40 miles an hour. It's pretty great.
Did you ever find, though, going up a mountain, depending on the contour of the mountain, sometimes you'll lose elevation, and that made me inordinately angry. It's like, I've just been why are you making me go down at all? I'm just trying to get up to the top.
Exactly. Yeah. Evans had a half mile or 3/4 of a mile downhill. And you're like, oh,
why?
It seemed like it would be great. And then you're like, no, I know I'm going to have to pay for that.
Well, you got to do it twice effectively.
On the backside. John Biggs says I did 55 miles per hour when I was 14, right after I got my first speedometer on a tar and chip road in front of my house. No helmet, no pads. Then he says, I never do anything like that again. No.
The other problem with the mountains is when you're coming down, they tend to have some pretty sharp turns.
Right.
So
which isn't bad when you're going up. Like when you're climbing
fine.
them,
The switchbacks going up are fine.
This is great. Then on the way down, you're like,
ooh, scary.
You're putting the brakes on to slow that thing down. Yeah, I've had some scary. When I was doing this ride, San Jose to Tahoe during high school, I had a couple riders who had been practicing for this, and then they were like, "This is the crazy thing when you're a teenager." These guys had been, they were probably in their 30s. They had been training for this thing for like 3 months. And then I was like, can I ride with you? And I did a century. No, I just somebody loaned me a bike, and it was a pretty good bike. But I got on. I didn't think about nutrition or hydration. I just rode for 100 miles, and you're like, I did that in a day. I didn't ride the next day, and they did. Right. That's the difference. Is I sat in the van the next day as they climbed to Tahoe.
Yeah. I mean, on some of the bike tours, that was the hardest thing that I did is, you ride 120 miles and then you got to get up the next day and ride another 100. That was tough. It'd take about 30 miles in before you felt like, okay, everything's moving right again.
Yeah, that first morning back on, you're like, what? You're in your brain, you're like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking on this one? Well, Ed, before I ask you about this e-bike, anything else that we might have missed in there that you think as we think about bike tech?
Anybody considering cycling should have a look at a helmet. And the technology's come a long way with helmets too. Again, all price points. I think the most recent one I bought was maybe a $300 one, but it looks like it's more vents than it is helmet. And a lot of that is just recuperating their research and development costs on. So what you'll find is, last year's great helmet, will drop $100 and be second in the lineup. So there's a lot of good options out there, and they're much better ventilated than they used to be.
Yeah, well, and are you a gloves guy? Do you like to have gloves on when you're riding?
Always gloves. Yeah. It gives you a little bit of padding, and it depends on where you're riding, but some of the terrain gets kind of rough. So, and always cycling shoes for me clipped in, but it's not 100% necessary.
I bought the retro ones that fit your tennis shoes. So I wouldn't clip in, but I would put those in, and that always was good enough for what I was doing.
Yeah. I think it is good enough. People who go to, oddly, those are called the clipless pedals, even though you clip in. But that's just because on the old ones they had metal clips,
Yep.
to hold your foot on the pedal.
Yep.
And people who first go clipless always tip over. Right. It's just they'll stop and then start to panic and not quite remember how to get their foot out of there. And you just see them flip over.
It's like a
And
slow.
then, as long as they didn't break anything, you can start laughing at them at that point.
Yeah. Well, you got to turn on the clips, right? You got to turn your
heel
foot
in or out. Usually out makes more sense to me.
Right. Yeah.
But so just like anything else, it becomes second nature. But first few times can be scary.
Yeah, I think if I were gonna go now, I would just do I just do those foot, the foot clips, the clipless. Is that what they call it? Clipless? Is that what you said? The ones you can just put your shoe in and it holds your shoe in place instead of clipping in.
That's the old school with the clip and straps.
Yeah.
And the same sort of thing. I mean, because again, depending on terrain, it's just holding your foot against that pedal. On the clipless ones, a lot of it is you get more pedaling efficiency by pushing and pulling. Right. So you're actually getting more efficiency out of it on the clipless pedals, but for the average person, who cares?
Yeah. For me, for a guy like me, especially, let's look at this commuter bike that I'm thinking about. So I was watching YouTube, and this guy that I watch he was testing all these T-Mobile routers and I subscribed to his channel because he was, showing me these routers and stuff. And, that's the way I went for my internet. So I was following.
Yeah.
Then he pops in one day with this e-bike, and he's like, hey, this is pretty interesting. This is a company called Jason, Jasion. Would you say Jason? How do you think you pronounce that?
Sion, Jason,
something like that. Jasion.
It's a company.
Let's call it Jason. I like that.
Right. I like that.
And they've got two different models. They've got this EB5, which is kind of a commuter bike. It's got a battery on the frame. You can see here that they'll say it's up to 16 miles, which it'll give you pedal assist for up to 16 miles.
Yep.
They make and sell all the components for it. They've got a smaller, and I don't know what you would call these folding flat or fat tire electric bikes that for commuters who want to fold it down and take it with them on the train or whatever, and then maybe
maybe you have limited storage at your office or whatever the case may be.
Want to fold it down. I'm not sure I'd go 10 miles on a bike, little tiny tires and fat tires.
Right.
But
you'd feel kind of like a clown on that one, wouldn't you?
I think I would.
With the tiny little wheels.
I think I would I think I would listen if I lived downtown and I worked downtown and I needed to commute 2 miles.
Mm-hmm.
I'd jump on that thing. Like, it folds down or whatever. Or if I needed something where I needed to fold it down and take it with me. But the beauty on these prices, and Brian just, mentioned this in chat. It's like these things are either under $800, $719 for this bike. And again, I live 10 miles from where I work. I have driven. I have ridden in before.
Yeah.
It's a hilly. It's not flat. It's a little hilly. It'd be nice to have the electric assist on it. I've never had that before. I was riding our B cycles here in town, and those had electric assist, and it was kind of nice, So I don't know, Ed, for $800, I'd have to watch some reviews. And what kind of advice would you give me as a bike guy?
Do they have any more info on specs of the thing, or you just get a picture and you buy?
That's a good question. Let's see if we get here's some battery. Here's some battery information, 3 levels of assist. So it's got a 36 volt, 10 amp hour, if you say it that way, battery capacity, 3 level pedal assist, 5 or 6 hours to a full charge, which in
Mhm.
theory, go in the morning, use all of the power or most of it, charge it at work, then I'd have the battery back, when I got home, and that would work about 40 miles per charge. What they're saying, ooh, I'm getting close. Max load 264 on this thing. I'm getting close at
Yeah,
240. So
you can't bring much with you, Jim.
I got maybe 20 pounds in there to work with. Maybe I
Right,
need to lose some weight.
and you figured, okay, 40 miles per charge,
Yeah.
if you get half of that, you're still good.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's 12,
Yeah,
13
and
miles
then
into
you
work
can
for me.
charge at work, right?
But yeah. Just plug it in at work, and it's got a little LED display to give you some information. I'm sure it's not that fancy, but you get a little bit of
You don't
you
need
get
a
a
lot
little
of
bit of that.
fancy.
Here's less pedaling, more power is what they say. It's built into the hub
I like
on
that.
that. 3 mining. Let's see what else we get. Front suspension, pretty strong front suspension forks, mechanical disc brakes you were talking about before, and then a Shimano 7
Huh,
speed derailleur.
interesting.
Yeah, here's some
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, the spec on the Shimano stuff is their cheapest stuff. Doesn't
right,
make it bad.
right.
I mean, it's still durable. Usually, when you look at the bicycle componentry, yeah. All right. So scroll back a little bit because this is where you see it. E-bike weight 49.6. At least it's not 50. Um, you know, it
Yeah.
it's heavy,
Okay.
right? So
Right. Right.
inexpensive. Part of what you're getting when you spend more money is lighter weight. Now, the question is, does that matter once you're looking at an e-bike? Well, a lot less, right? So, my road bike probably weighs, I don't know, 20 pounds or something, but battery's going to add weight to it. I don't know.
I would
It's,
imagine a lot of weight to it.
yeah,
They
it's
have
really
been
a tempting price there. There's a
it
lot
kind
going on with
it ki
that.
it kinda is. Brian had said, but the price doesn't include the $80 in shipping. And I think I had a deal, doesn't say here, but on their main page, I think they were offering free. No, you're right. Yeah. It's no, I thought they were offering free shipping on some of
No.
these. Maybe that was through a YouTube link that this guy gave me. I'll have to go in and find
Well,
that. Certainly.
well, Jim, it is free shipping when you pay regular price of $7.99.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
might be a better way for them to do
Well,
it, right?
you can, I thought you could buy it on Amazon cheaper, but there was more. Like you can buy this on Amazon a little bit cheaper, but then there is shipping there.
Oh,
Um,
really? No
so
Prime?
yeah. Yeah, well, Brian had said not for this one, just typed into Amazon, saw it's currently on sale for 600 there, but
Uh,
oh, I see. 600 there, but that price doesn't include the $80 shipping. So
so it's still
that's on
cheaper.
Amazon. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think I could even get a better price than this 719 if I use this YouTubers, like I use a YouTuber code or something to get
Right.
something in there. So,
So
yeah,
I'm assuming it must be a made in China and branded with this company name.
you would think, wouldn't
Yeah.
you?
I
Wouldn't you?
would guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I w
I'm gonna put the name of it in the show notes. Maybe I should ping him and say, "Hey, I talked about this,
You ought to
love to
send me
review
one
it."
to you're gonna become a reviewer now? Well, for a free e-bike, I'll do a review.
It's $800. I've seen, I mean, I think I got a Drobo sent to me that was worth more than that. So,
Right.
you never know.
Well, one of the folks I do a podcast with, a comedian named Jimmy Dunn, just bought an e-bike, but his was $4,000.
Yeah, they're the higher end ones are
Higher
really
end, they'll go,
expensive.
$4 to $8,000 range.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I saw something that said, most of the e-bikes being sold are in the $500 to $800 range. So people are buying inexpensive ones,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, for for $8,000, I could buy a moped. I'd be fully just, be fully, not even pedaling. Justin says looking at 6 to
Yeah,
8,000. Well, this is what caught my eye because, of course, the pandemic drove up the prices of these e-bikes. A lot of folks were
right.
like buying them during this, and I'll be honest. I mean, I rode a regular bike to work and it's just fine. That's
It's
not
just fine. I
that's
think
it's
it's
not that hard.
nice to have the assist though. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
mean you have to. You'll get a good workout on a 50-pound bike if you don't use the
Yeah,
electric
if you run out of
assist.
battery, you are cuz so what do you think, a really good bike is, I mean, a good bike, 20 pounds. These are 50.
Mm,
What's your average bike weight, do you think?
I would guess if you're spending for a road bike to get you to a quality bike it's really running you $1,000, and
Yeah, but
that's
what about
no.
weight? What's the weight on that bike?
So in that $1,000 range, I bet
Yeah.
it's 27, 28
Okay.
pounds.
So this would be double a regular bike.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you got the electric assist.
Yeah, but does that just put you back to where you were with a regular bike, right? You
I
know?
think a lot of it is, what's the goal? If the goal is to use it to commute to work, I think it
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
I mean, if the goal is to use it for fitness, well, then don't get an e-bike. The point is to pedal the bike.
True, true, true.
You
But I
know,
I did use the e-bikes. Like I could still get a lot of fitness out of the city e-bikes that they had, and I could go
right.
farther and a little bit faster. It wasn't like now when I rode the regular bikes, like that was a great workout. That was like a hill climb, ride a city bike. Those things are probably 30 or 40 pounds with no
Yeah.
assist.
Oh, yeah. Those
Yeah,
are heavy.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, you'd see the people obsessed with the weight of their road bike, and they'd be telling you, "Well, I've got this down to 17 pounds," and it'd be like, "Well, dude, you're 20 pounds overweight. Maybe you might want to skip a sandwich and not buy all the titanium hardware to put on the bike."
might be a little cheaper just to lose some weight.
It always is
Hilarious.
cheaper because,
That's
the
hilarious.
people who really pursued the how do I get lighter and lighter, they would be looking at what's the cost per gram of weight reduction to buy this?
Yeah,
You know? Oh, that's a lot per gram. So they were looking at grams on things. And
yeah.
for me, not that interested. I need it to be durable. And if it's lightweight and durable, that's ideal.
Mhm.
Titanium
Well,
is cool, Justin says, and I agree. That's why I have a titanium frame. But
but
it's sort
isn't
of
carbon
interesting.
fiber the cool thing now?
Yeah, titanium has fallen out of favor. You're gonna and frankly, you can make a lighter aluminum bike than titanium bike, but titanium's more durable than
Mhm,
aluminum is.
mhm.
And more fixable if you end up denting something, you can
Yeah.
go in and fix it. But yeah, I mean, carbon fiber is going to get you a lighter bike. And it, again, though, is not as durable. When I had my fixed gear built, the bike builder said, "Yeah, the problem is I can't sell titanium anymore. I tell these guys it'll last forever, and they're not interested in that. They want to buy new stuff
Yeah,
every couple of years."
yeah.
But mine, looks like brand new after 15 years, so it will outlast me, Jim.
Well, You'll have to pass it. You'll have to pass it along to somebody.
I'll make a note in the will. I got to figure it. Do you need it, Jim? We're about the same height, right?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, you never know. So it'll just show up. I'll get some random call from an attorney. Hey, you got to come pick up this bike.
You got something in the will.
Can you come out to Boston and pick up this bike? We can't ship it to you. You're going to have to come out and pick it up.
Jim, I'll specify that they should take money from the estate to ship it to you.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, listen, there's no point in giving people things when it comes with some effort on your part.
Well, maybe it's like I do a Boston to Omaha, ride in your name.
Right, that'll be my final gift
Sullivan.
to you. I'll send you a plane ticket.
One way.
You'll have to ride it home.
Ride it back. It's the Ed Sullivan. God, how many miles? That's I mean, I drove it, so it's 2 full days going full speed.
Yeah.
Omaha. Hold on, we'll see. Omaha.
You think you can make it?
It'd be a couple weeks. It would be a couple. Well, give me airline. 1,400 miles.
Justin says it needs to be loaded with cigars.
Yeah, if it could have a cigar attachment on the front that would actually hold my cigar while I'm biking, and then maybe a saddle for the back where I could put a humidor.
A rack, and we'll put this travel humidor just on the back of the bike.
There you go.
This one will hold 30 cigars for you, Jim.
That's good.
Will that get you back home?
That could be questionable. It's a long. I mean, how many? Let's see. Hold on. Let's click on the directions. I've got this up on Google. Let's look at the directions, and then they have a bike. They have a cycling option, right, on the car, bus, walking.
Oh, right. Click that bike and see how long it's going to take you.
Well, if I'm riding a bike, it's 1,562 miles because you can't go interstate, and 131 hours. If I did it straight,
you might want to sleep occasionally. Maybe have a rest.
So that's probably 2 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Let's see. I mean, realistically, we'll have you ride 6 hours per day.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably still want a rest day. So it's going to take you a while, Jim.
It's going to be 3 weeks to pick up the bike. 3 or 4 weeks, maybe. And Brian, Ed is in the Boston area.
I'm actually right next to historic Concord, Mass. My normal bike ride takes me by that Old North Bridge. So, in fact, it was one time it was on Patriots Day, and I was riding my bike through Concord Center, and they do all these reenactments on the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
I almost got bayoneted by a redcoat who was busy looking at his phone. He's just looking at his phone with a bayonet sticking out into the road. And I thought, okay, holidays are not the best time to ride in Concord.
No, especially with redcoats.
The redcoats, they come out. They sure do.
The Boston ride would take me through Western Mass, which is beautiful. I did that. But
gorgeous. A lot of hills in the Berkshires.
Yeah. Very hilly back in there, through Albany. And then you head up through Rome and come down to Syracuse, out through Rochester and into Buffalo, and then all the way down Lake Erie to Cleveland. I'd probably have to stay with some family down there. And then out across Ohio. You pretty much go through Ohio, just south of Toledo, straight across into Chicago, and then right across through Des Moines and in Omaha. So there you go. There's your 1,562 miles, all for a free bike.
And Brian says his brother-in-law just moved to Woburn, and that is not Woburn; it's Woburn.
Ooh,
Woburn.
Ooh.
And Jim, our our friend Chef Charlie's opening a new restaurant in Woburn.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Brian will have to check that out when he's
Yeah.
visiting.
Yeah, you got to go see Chef for sure. He is. You don't ask him about me. He doesn't have a high opinion of me because I
I don't know, Jim. You probably don't want to be saying what you did.
I
It
just
was a
couldn't.
sin.
It was. I do it differently. If I was Ed, I'd do it. If I had a second chance at it,
You'd do it
I
differently.
do it differently.
Well, we might give you another chance one day, Jim.
Yeah, maybe someday.
You got to earn it.
I'll have to, this time. I'll have to buy it. So it'll be.
Right. Then
when
you
I
can do
come out,
whatever you want.
it'll be on me. Yeah, but no, I can't. I still got to finish it. Maybe that's So, well, good enough. Ed, anything else before I wrap it up here?
No, I think we've said everything and more than needs to be said about cycling for a crowd that may not care.
They probably don't. Oh, but we've made them they are the bike authority at this point,
That's
right?
the truth.
Well, thanks for coming out and joining me. Some good conversation around. I do find. I mean, again, it got me. I was looking at this bike, not thinking about us having this conversation, but I think it's one of those things. There's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of folks, and I really need to get back on the road with something. I need. I've been walking every day, which has been good, but I'd like to get back into some more.
Yeah, for me, it's all exercise, so I'm not looking to electrify yet. But it looks like there are just a mind-boggling number of choices out there in e-bikes.
Yeah.
And
they're pretty expensive, and I'm sure they're not going to get any cheaper.
No, there was talk if they ever got the rebates back in for cars, there was talk of adding rebates for e-bikes too.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. There was talk. Yeah, don't wait. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
You're probably right. You're probably right. Well, thanks for coming out tonight. Hang tight with me here for 1 second. If you want to join us in the Discord group, a lot of the conversation we'll just take into Discord if you want to do it there. Of course, it was just Prime Day and there was tons of deals going on and they all got posted to the Discord group. So you want to join us over there, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. If you want to leave a message for the show, you can send that to me or record it at homegadgetgeeks.com. There's a little blue recording button over there and leave us a message. Send me an email too. After you leave that message, just send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv, to let me know you've done that. And or if you got any feedback on the show, you want to harass Ed or you got some kind of counterpoint, Ed always appreciates, some spirited dialogue.
Sure.
Yeah. If you got something there, Jim@theaverageguy.tv. And then don't forget theaverageguy.tv, powered by Maple Grove Partners. That's Christian. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. At least I trust them. They run theaverageguy.tv, and they do a pretty great job. You could as well. For more information and plans that start as $10. Listen, he hasn't raised his prices, even though inflation has kicked in fully. He has not raised his prices yet, and you get those locked in. MapleGrovePartners.com. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. We got a couple great shows coming up, a couple more guests. If you missed last week, you want to go back and listen to that. Dave joined us from Deep Sentinel, and some interesting conversation around AI, kind of AI-based home security. And then next week, I have another guest you've never met before. So you want to head out and come in here. Karn is coming on. We're going to talk a little bit about domain and kind of the domain infrastructure and what we're doing around. There's all these weird domain names now. I'm going to ask the question, do we really need them all? So we're going to talk a little bit about that next week. And then Akarsh is back. He was on and we had a total fail of hardware and the internet wouldn't work for me. So he's coming back and he's got a cool little speaker that you can put in your home for whole home audio. And so those are all coming up. Dan Lefebvre will join us here. So some new guests and some old one. Aaron Lawrence is coming back. Ed, your favorite, right?
Do we know what she's going to tell me to buy next, Jim?
No, we'll have to, as we get closer to it, I'll make sure you tell me what you want and I'll just tell her to talk about
all
it.
Right.
So you go ahead and buy.
Maybe you should just tell her e-bikes and let her do the research for you.
When you're done with it, can you have them send it down to me so I can ride that thing? I'd ride the heck out of that thing. We'll see you back here next week. Thanks for coming out. Those listening live, thanks for coming out. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. All right. Guys, if you're listening live, thanks for joining us tonight. Appreciate you guys coming out. Some good info in the chat. Brian, Justin, good to see you. Brian, Justin, we purposely put the cigars up front so you wouldn't be jealous of the prices that Justin's got to pay these just ridiculous prices to get these things. John, I saw Joe. I think I saw Joe and Tony was out there a little bit earlier, and of course, Ready Set Data coming in from Twitch, and Ken was in a little bit earlier. So thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you next week. We should have a lot of fun as we kind of do this alternative subject. Come out and ask some good stuff, and we'll see you next week. Take care.